And joining us now from NCBA's Denver headquarters is NCBA CEO Colin Woodall. Colin, let's start with the announcement by the White House last week on the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. Can you give us the details of that program and specifically outline how it's going to help U.S. cattle producers?
Well, it was a great honor to be personally invited by the president to be a part of the rollout of the CFAP program, the Coronavirus Food Assistance Program. And our president, Marty Smith, was there in the White House with the president in order to do that. It's a great program, and it recognizes that we have incurred losses throughout the COVID-19 crisis. You'll recall that this is the result of action taken by Congress through the CARES Act back 2 months ago, and it's going to be direct payments to producers. Those payments are opening up this week. And so if you need details on how to apply, go to our website and you can find out how to apply for those funds. And the hope is that this will help us get through this crisis and be able to look towards better days. Now, we have to keep in mind that this is not a perfect program. In fact, when you look at the structure of the program, you're going to get a whole lot more for your losses incurred before April 15th than after April 15th. And April 15th is nothing more than an arbitrary government date. So we're going to work with Congress to get them to fix that for us, to make sure that we can make this program as useful and helpful as possible, and also to make sure that all segments of the producer community can utilize that. Cow-calf producers, stockers, we really need to focus on their ability to capture some value here. And with that April 15th date, it's just not providing us that opportunity. It's also important to realize that this is not for packers. This is just for producers.
President Trump alluded to beef imports during the press conference. This is a hot topic, and it seems like there's a lot of discussion and confusion around this very complex issue. Can you give us the facts?
The president did talk a little bit about the import of cattle, and what we had to remind the White House is that we only import live cattle from Canada and Mexico, and we're doing that under the guise of the USMCA, which the president negotiated. And we do find a lot of value in that. But it has re-sparked the discussion of exports and imports. And that's always a complicated discussion, and one that gets a lot of people excited when you're out in the countryside. So it's important to step back a little bit and understand what exports really mean for us. There's a lot of parts of the animal that we just don't eat as Americans. We don't eat tongues. We don't eat hearts, kidneys, or livers. But there are countries that would pay a premium for that and do pay a premium for those products. And that's why trade is so important and exports are so important, because we can take products that are undervalued here in the United States and we can get a premium price paid for them in countries such as South Korea, Japan, and now China. And that is value that we capture as producers here in the United States. But you can't have exports without imports. It's the golden rule. We can't ask somebody to take our exports without expecting to take imports from other countries. But it's not a punitive agreement. We actually get a lot of value out of imports. We have a highly valued product here in the United States because of our corn finishing. And with that, when we process our cattle, we have a lot of leftover fat that is trimmed off during that processing. We can take that fat, we can bring in lean beef from other countries, we can combine that to make ground beef to satisfy a lot of the demand that we see for ground beef, and you especially see that go into food service hamburgers. So we're taking a product, our trimmed fat that would otherwise be a waste product, and we're getting value out of it by bringing in these imports. So when you look at exports and imports, in both cases, it's us as producers that benefit.
Regarding imports, what impact could any potential change have on current or outstanding trade agreements?
You know, one of the things that we were able to talk to the president about is that if he wants to look at some of our trade deals, that it would be really good to look at the Brazilian access that they currently have to send their beef into the United States. Of course, Brazil has a problem with foot and mouth disease, and we need to make sure that all of those facilities have been inspected. It's important to remember that if you're going to export beef in the United States, those plants have to meet the exact same safety standards as the plants do here in the United States. And that product gets inspected not only in that country, but also when it gets here into the United States. But we just want a little bit more certainty from USDA that they have done their due diligence to ensure that we're not going to see foot and mouth disease come into the United States. So if the president really wants to step back and take a look at some of the trade deals, we are asking him to look at Brazil, because that's the best place where we can start this discussion to ensure that we can still have trade, but do it in a way that protects us from any sort of foreign animal disease coming back into the United States.
Can you give us an update on the status of beef processing plants, and specifically tell us, what are you hearing?
Well, as of the time that we're taping this right now, all of the beef packing plants are up and running. Now, they are running at various capacities. Some are back to 100%, some much less. But overall, we do believe that we're operating at about 75% of our total capacity. So that's a drastic improvement over where we have been. And we do expect that we will see that continue to improve day by day. And that's extremely important for us as producers, because we have seen the backlog of cattle stack up in these feedlots and down into cow-calf producers who are trying to sell their cattle. We need to be able to get that flow moving again. We need to clean that out to ensure that, one, we're getting the product to our consumer, whether that is food service or in retail, and number two, to make sure that we don't have continuing costs on our side of the equation as producers, which are going to continue to just put more woe and pain into the prices that we are seeing. So it's extremely important right now that we continue to work with USDA and with the packers to get them as healthy as possible, to make sure we're taking care of those workers, because without those workers in those plants, we can't get anything done. So to take care of those workers, get us back to as much capacity in these plants as we possibly can in order to provide us opportunities to get our cattle harvested and processed, and make sure that anytime the consumer goes into the meat case here during summer grilling season, that they're always going to find beef.
Thank you, Colin, for the leadership you and your staff are providing throughout this crisis. NCBA has a critical role to play in helping the industry come together, learn from this crisis, and most importantly, position our industry for the future. Thanks for all you do.